Hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to the All Things Performance Podcast, backed by popular demand. We got professional golfer all the way from Europe, and you're going to have to give us the particulars exactly where you are. But we have Sam Whitehead. Sam Whitehead in the house. Sam, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. All the better for seeing your face. All good, mate. So yeah, all good. So yeah, I'm in Milton Keynes, in England, which is about half an hour north of London. It's bang in the middle of the country. Yeah, not very exciting to be fair.
Very, very nice. You said Mountain Kings, Mountain Kings.
Milton Keynes.
Milton Kings. That's right. Milton Kings.
Milton
That's what
Keynes.
it is.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's right.
Now you remember. Now you remember.
Yeah, man. What's the weather looking like out there right now?
It's nice today, actually. We've had a pretty dire summer. It's been non-stop rain and grey clouds. So
Yeah.
we've gone from record temperatures last year to one of the worst summers I can remember. So
Oh wow.
all part of the fun of living in the UK, really.
Yeah, that's how it is, man. That's how it is. I mean, you guys aren't missing the triple digits for 30 plus days out here in Phoenix, Arizona. I know you're not missing that, man.
Yeah, no, it's I kind of like my 25 degrees here, 25 Celsius. You know, the right way of it all. We'll go through that again.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, it's a comfy 25. It's never too hot. Yeah, right, it rains a bit, but yeah, you don't get
Yeah.
the crazy heat that you guys do.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good. So, man, lots to talk about today, particularly, in the golf world. It's crazy because the last time that you were on here, for those of you who watched, it's almost prophetic, the kind of things that you were saying, in terms of live and golf, the state of golf and where it's going and what was offered to certain players. And here we are on the other side. And we're not clearly even through the woods on this yet. Like it's still developing, with live. And so one of the things that I wanted to do is I'm just going to provide a structure, and I want you to just kind of put meat on the bone, just fill it in even more so for us. But one of the things that we had talked about on a prior podcast with live in the world of golf was here you have this huge organization that was backed with Saudi money, and it's controversial in some people's eyes on how much they're paying people, how legitimate the money is, and then you start talking about players who are defecting from the PGA to go and play and live. And then the PGA is saying, hey, if you go over there, you can't come back over here. So it caused this divide. Certain players who were not necessarily going to get the acclaim and the pathway in PGA were now going to live, and they were making tons of money. And all of a sudden, you fast forward a little bit, there's some meetings happening behind closed doors, and certain people weren't being invited to those meetings. And now we have this conglomerate of live PGA, and you're going to have to fill me in on the other organization or organizations that joined this thing. And now it's like a one world order in golf. And people
Yeah. So
go ahead.
yeah. So the first big thing is it's not live and PGA joining. So the PIF is what was back live, and the PIF is now what's getting involved with the PGA Tour. So live and the PGA Tour are still going to be separate entities, but they're going to be owned, I guess, technically, by the PIF. The PIF's going to be the major investor into both of them. So live and PGA Tour aren't coming together. It's the backer of live coming with the backer of to be the backer of the PGA Tour as well.
So can you give us some more insight? That's interesting. Can you give us some more insight in terms of this backer that's backing, in essence, the two organizations?
Yeah, so it's the PIF still. So it's the Saudi-backed government fund, private investment fund of Saudi Arabia. So it's just got billions and billions and billions. It's an endless stream of money, basically. And they're obviously investing heavily into, going to try to invest heavily into the PGA Tour. So when Live started, PGA Tour started changing the format of some of their events, basically trying to get the players more money, more bonuses to keep them on the PGA Tour. So then they were bleeding money because of that, because they didn't have enough money coming in from sponsors and whatever else have you. They were going into their reserve fund or dipping into their reserve fund to be able to pay the bigger purses and the more bonus money that they're paying out. So basically, PGA Tour were bleeding money, and Liv had sued PGA Tour and the players of Live had to do the PGA Tour because they weren't allowing them to play. So now you've got half a dozen of the guys on Live suing the PGA Tour, and all of a sudden, the PIF, which is back in Live, is now going to be back on the PGA Tour, so they're now suing what they could be playing on again. So it's an absolute mess. So that's not even scratching the surface. So this whole deal with the PIF and the PGA Tour was done completely behind the players' back. And the PGA Tour is a players-run organization. And the chief exec and the executives within the company are basically led by what the players want.
Yeah.
But this came about purely from the executives going to PIF, or the meeting coming together, and they announced it. Half of the majority of the players did not know about it until it was announced on that morning at the Canadian Open. So there was a lot of anger, frustration, confusion, lack of understanding. No one knew what was going on for 24 hours, 48 hours.
Yeah.
There was a players committee or players meeting with Jay Monahan, who's the PGA Tour chief exec, whatever he is. And by all accounts, it wasn't particularly pleasant. So yeah, basically, it's just one massive shit show in the world of professional golf at the minute.
Wow.
Yeah, and then you've got the PGA Tour, which is also backing the DP World Tour, which is the European Tour over here. And it's just, yeah.
Wow.
It's a mess.
So I have a very obvious question, but I have to ask it, right? Because something tells me that this is not necessarily, hasn't been solved yet. Are the players still upset?
Yes. I think it's more the fact it was done behind their back without them knowing about it. A lot of players have come out and said they don't trust Jay Monahan now. They don't trust the committee as such, the executives that are working on the deal, because it's a players-run organisation, supposedly. But the problem is they've now got is the players can still refute it. The players can still say, no, we don't want this deal. And it's also got to go through, what's over there? The antitrust over there.
Yeah.
It's still got to go through the Senate and everything else to actually even get cleared. And now they're actually investigating the PGA Tour for their non-profit status.
Oh.
So, yeah, it's all been a bit of a mess. And the legal fees that were coming in from Live players suing the PGA Tour was basically what was drowning out the PGA Tour. So this whole thing basically came about so all of those would get dropped.
Yeah.
So there are now no active lawsuits between Live and the PGA Tour.
Yeah, I mean, you said it a couple of times, and that was one of the things that I understood from this whole debacle was that when you start looking at Live money versus PGA money, it was you use the term endless. I mean, you're talking about billions upon billions of dollars, and you have the smaller pot that's just, there's nothing in it. And when you start talking about litigation, court fees, and all this, that, and the other. And so one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is this, I was listening to, I think it was an ESPN podcast or show, and they brought up some interesting points in relation to this type of behavior or this activity being cloned in other sports. Because if you look at, organizations like Live and, these backed funds, these private backed funds, it's almost like it's taking over sports, right? Because they've done it in golf. We're talking about this now. They've done it in golf, racing. I think I want to, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Formula One racing. There's a lot of
Formula One,
money behind that coming from the Saudi government. Also, horse racing as well, wrestling, and so they're talking about soccer is another one, I believe, right?
Boxing as well.
Boxing.
A lot of boxing fights are going over there.
So my question is, when you start looking at sports, right? Sports is a huge platform because it brings nations together, it brings people together. There's a lot of money, influence. We're seeing athletes who are, using their platforms for political reasons, social reasons, personal reasons. Do you foresee this permeating the world of sports, like even getting into, dare I say, the last bastion of sports, NFL, NBA, because NBA is a global game, and NFL not necessarily in the level of soccer and racing and golf and stuff like this, but these hosts were in this show. They were talking about, man, we're not too far from seeing this type of behavior, basically buying talent and creating a different type of sports atmosphere, man. What do you think about all that?
Oh, yeah, that's the whole thing. It is sports washing, isn't it? Because they're trying to clean their image. They're trying to promote this image of what they are. And if they're doing it with the right frame of mind, then yeah, okay. But you look at what's going on in Saudi, nothing's changing. We can't, as the Western civilization, criticize other countries for how they are. Well, we can, but it's a different civilization, it's a different way of life, etc., etc. But all they're trying to do is basically just sports wash everyone to think Saudi Arabia is really nice, when actually the human rights issues are there.
I want to make sure that I'm hearing you correctly. Did you use the term sports wash?
Yes.
Can you please explain that in further detail?
So sports washing is basically, the easiest way to describe it is they're trying to buy good karma, or good, karma's not the right word, but they're basically trying to make themselves look better than what they are.
Got it.
By with true sports. So obviously, they've bought Live. All the football players are going there now. Boxing matches, like you said, you've got the Formula One, Aramco are sponsoring everything because they're trying to improve their image, which is through sports. So sports washing, they're cleaning their image through sports. Whether they are actually on the ground, I don't know. I haven't been there. I don't really plan on going there anytime soon. But yeah, you're always going to have the issue of where the money's coming from. So yeah, it's
interesting.
It's a smelly one.
That's I've never heard that term before, and I learned something today. So it's kind of like brainwashing, but in the world of sports.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you're trying to use sports to clean your image, basically.
Okay, that's a new one for me, bro. All right.
You heard that?
No, never.
Huh?
I've never heard that before. That's a good, man. And see, that's why Sam, that's why you're on the show, man. That's why you just make all of us better. You know what I'm saying?
I try. I'll pull up the proper definition for you. Hang on.
Hey, so while you're doing that, while you're pulling up that definition, I want you to kind of play time traveler here, and go into the future 10, 15 years from now, right? So if we can cognitively rest in that area 10, 15 years from now, and we look back at this situation with Live and with the PGA, people are going to say what?
It's still too early to tell.
That's why I tell you to go to 10, 15 years, man.
Yeah, but you can't tell how it's going to be in 10 or 15. You can't. So one of the big things is if PIF do back, if it all goes through, PGA Tour will then control Live. So that will they'll just shut Live down potentially. They probably won't.
You said if it all goes through, PGA will shut Live down?
Potentially. So the PIF will be the stakeholder in the PGA Tour, giving Jay Monahan control, or PGA Tour director control, to then potentially better shut down Live.
Got it.
Because he'll basically be in control of Live as well, because it'll be backed by the same financial thing. So it will become technically one entity. But PGA, the big thing that people are getting confused is that PGA Tour and Live are merging. They're not. It's the PIF backing Live and the PGA Tour.
Got it.
So PGA and Live is still going to be separate entities, but it's just who it's backed by.
In essence, that's the person that's what you got to follow the money trail, though.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll ask because you refuse to do time travel. That's fine. I'm going to ask.
I can do time travel. I can do time travel.
Okay, what do you got?
It's going to go one of the two ways, in my opinion. The way the PGA Tour is now being backed, the financial gains are a lot better than they were on the PGA Tour 5 years ago, 3 years ago. So players are more likely to stay. I think a lot of the players that are going to go have gone. I don't think you're going to get any of the big players really go anymore. And live as a product is unsustainable. The type of money they're pumping in, the money they're paying the players, they're paying out 20 million an event. They're not bringing in 20 million an event because they've got no TV rights. TV rights are the biggest earner in contracts like that. So they're not bringing in the money to make it justifiable. It's not a business. It's just a show pony.
Yeah.
So it's either going to be sort of ending up being shut down by the PGA Tour, and then all the players on Live that were on the PGA Tour are then going to have to grovel their way back in and face some sort of punishment or fine or whatever to get back into the PGA Tour, or it might just fizzle out and die because it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Or it goes from strength to strength. They find TV backing and it stays there. It's as a tour. To me, it's not interesting because all they're really doing is playing for money. There's no heritage to any of it. There's no storyline to it. I've got a bunch of guys just playing for a shit ton of money. It's not good TV.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go see a guy competing to win a historic event against the best players in the world, and you've got 5, maybe 10 guys on Live that are worth a dime that could still compete on PGA Tour realistically. I mean, Lee Westwood, who's one of the best players, was the best player in the world for a while, shot 20 over at Bedminster last week, finished dead last, and picked up 100 grand.
Oh wow,
that's not competitive.
Yeah,
you turn up, you don't do anything for 3 rounds, and you walk away with 100 grand, right?
Yeah,
you've made 3 times more. You made 3 times more in 1 week than the average UK household income for the year, and you've done absolutely nothing.
Hey man, you gotta compensate the guy for going out there. You know what I'm saying, and using his expertise.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he's put himself in the position to be able to go out there and do that. So fair play. But as a product,
yeah,
I'm not criticizing Lee Westwood, who's had a fantastic career and is arguably one of the best players of all time.
Yeah,
one of the best Europeans of all time. But yeah, I mean, just that that as a product is just, I have no interest in that at all.
Yeah. So I have a question for you.
The definition of sports washing. Sports washing is a term used to describe the practice of individuals, groups, corporations, or governments using sports to improve reputations tarnished by wrongdoing.
Wow.
So trying to clean their name, basically.
Yeah, that's good, man. Prior to today, I had never really heard that term in that context, and so learn something new every day. I appreciate that.
Anytime, that's what I'm here for.
Hey, man, that's why we pay you the big bucks to be on these podcasts. You know what I'm saying? Hey,
yeah, I'll send you my cash out
later. Hey, so check this out. So when you start looking at, I have one more question just in regards to Live, and then we get into the more lighter stuff, the fun stuff. So when you look at Live, right, to play devil's advocate, right, because there's a lot of negative. There's a lot of dollars. But to play devil's advocate, do you think that when we look back at this situation, that it was good that it happened, because it exposed a lot of things? It made us privy to some things that were going on behind closed doors, to the plans that were being made, right, for the future of the sport. It uncovered a lot, man, that we didn't know as the average consumer. Obviously, you're a professional golfer, so you have more insight and knowledge and wisdom than all of us that are playing or that are watching you guys play. But for the average consumer, an average person, like, do you think that this was good for sports? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are your thoughts there?
In a way, it was good for golf for it to be shaken up. I'm not saying it was stale, but there wasn't any competition. There hadn't ever been. The PGA Tour has been the strongest tour for the last 30 years, 40 years probably. It's where all the money is, where all the best players are. And did it need something to happen? Probably. Because then what happened on the back of Live starting up is all the players got together and then decided to make things better and make sure they're all turning up to the same events to make the product better. Because you've got 50 events throughout the year on the PGA Tour, or 48, 50 events, and you've got 5 guys, 5 of the top 15 turning up to this one, the other 5 turning up to this one, the other 5 turning up to this one. So then it just sort of blands out the product a bit. But if you got all 15 of those guys turning up to the same event, it makes the product a lot better. And that's what they've started to implement with these elevated events, and they've called them something else for next year. But basically trying to get the best guys together more often to improve the product. So there's been the good that's come out of it, I guess, because things have changed even within the PGA Tour. Are they all changes for good? It's just funneling more money to the best players, but they're also the ones that bring in the sponsorship dollars and the TV deals and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you should always have, because the thing is, you know, if you have Rory McIlroy and he finishes tied 5th with Tom Hoge, who is a solid PGA Tour player, they take home the same amount of money that week.
Mm-hmm.
But Rory McIlroy has put more money into the tour in terms of his image, what he brings to it. So is it fair that they get paid the same? Well, this is then what's been argued for the last sort of 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So yeah, it's basically the better players are wanting more money. They want more than what they've had. So
it's interesting.
Yeah, it's all a money grab. People will still say they're doing it for. People will still say that they're doing it for the wins and everything else, and the money doesn't matter. But if you're earning 10 million a year, the money doesn't really matter. You are just there to win. So
yeah,
you're not worrying about paying the bills and putting food on the table.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Those are some great points you bring up. When you look at golf, right? It's a hard pivot. When you look at golf has traditionally been played by certain people of a certain status who look a certain type of way, like the history of golf. Like if we're all being honest with ourselves here, right? Regardless of country, nation, creed, whatever, like that's just how golf is. But now when you look at golf is very different now than it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's very different. You are seeing individuals representing several nations. You are seeing, resurgences in careers with older golfers. You're seeing younger golfers. You're seeing women that are just as good or even better than their male counterparts. You're seeing, Black golfers, Latin golfers, Asian golfers, young golfers who typically weren't necessarily in these storylines and in the tapestry of this great game. And so what I wanted to do is ask you, as a professional golfer, somebody who's in a hotbed of golf there in Europe, like what would you attribute that to? And how can we keep that fire burning, man?
Well, I think the success golf is having now, take away the professional side, in the amateur side of the game, it's in a massive boom. It's growing exponentially. It's crazy right now. And it will all trickle back to Tiger, because he made the game cool again. No one wanted to rock up in 1995 and see guys wearing Pringle jumpers and diamond sweats with chinos sweating out everywhere. They're overweight and doing whatever. That wasn't entertaining. Tiger comes along, the TV products gets better. He then brings obviously the players through that are then better. We've got a generation now that have been completely inspired by Tiger.
Mm-hmm.
So the generation that are coming through now, literally all they've seen is Tiger's success, and that's what they think golf is. And golf, has it become cooler? I don't know. Maybe. I'm not really in a position to say. But I think a lot more people are just enjoying being, I think certainly since COVID, people are enjoying being outside more and enjoying their free time. And I think a lot of the boom in people playing is down to Tiger and then COVID as well, just bumping it back up. Mm-hmm. But certainly the RNA, the USGA, the golf governing bodies have made a concerted effort to take golf to Asia, to Latin America, to Africa, to try and boost the profile of the sport. So they've now got the Asia Pacific Amateur, and the winner of that gets into the Masters, the Open, I think even the US Open as well. You've got the Latino America, amateur. Again, you get into the Masters, the Open, and the US Am, and I think they're introducing an African amateur? I could be wrong with that one. Don't quote me on that. But yes, so they're trying to grow the game in these other countries. And they're trying to raise the profile in new countries. And even since I've turned pro, I've noticed the diversity on tour has changed a lot as well. 8 years ago, someone might punch me, but I can't think of an ethnically diverse player. There wasn't any black guys out there. There wasn't any Asian guys out there. Not that I can think of anyway. If there was, I'm sorry, they might punch me. But now there's half a dozen to a dozen every week, and it's not, it's not necessarily reflective of the general population graph as it is, but it's an improvement. And I think it's becoming more accessible over here, certainly. A lot more attention is being given to junior golf and trying to get kids into playing golf and trying to make it more affordable. Because it's similar to tennis. It's always been seen as a elitist sport. It's 50 years ago, it was a white man's elitist sport. You can't get away from that. And they are, even in the America now, they have I think it's the APGA. I think, I can't remember. But again, it's for black and ethnic minorities to play on tour, and they've got basically their own tour to then try and get onto the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of different things that are going on to improve the diversity within golf, to improve the inclusion within golf as well.
Yeah, no, that's great.
But yeah, I've certainly noticed a difference even on tour over the last. Well, I've been pro for 8 years, so yeah, I've noticed a difference with that.
Yeah.
And you look at these guys coming through now. You've got guys coming through from Latin America, from Asia, from Africa. Everywhere, and it's good to see. It's good for the game. It grows the game. That's what grows the game. More people coming through from more diverse backgrounds. That's what grows the game, because then they take that back to their country, and then that grows it from there as well. Yeah. So,
I mean, even what we've seen in, with South Korean women, I believe. Like, I think I forget the lady, the young lady that won it several years ago, and then there was just like the floodgates open, and she's one of many examples, and so, I love to hear that, man. I love to hear that. Hey, man, if you guys got anything going to Africa, to the Caribbean, hey, sign me up as an ambassador, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm all in. South America, you know what I'm saying? I'm all in, you know what I'm saying?
I reckon we could do a little. We got a little trip to the Bahamas promoting the podcast, I reckon. Would you?
Hey, man, hey, listen, Sam, I got people in the Bahamas now. So
hey, let's go. All right, go on. I'll get my ticket. Don't worry about that. Come on, let's go.
Let's go, man. Let's go. Shoot, I'll get on that trip for sure. So hey, real quick, Sam, like, are there any, as you look at the professional landscape of golfers right now, are there any young up and coming Tiger Woods, dare I say, any hidden gems, diamonds in the rough that are coming up that we should be paying attention to, both male and or female?
I think it's so much harder now because Tiger was so much further ahead than everyone else. And now he came through. When he came through, he was one of one. No one wins the US Amateur 3 times in a row, and then that doesn't happen now, because it's so much more competitive. The depth is a joke. It used to be, if you were playing on the mini tours, you had no chance of making it onto the main tours. But now, if you can win on the mini tours, you're good enough to win on the next level, and then obviously the PGA Tour, European Tour, and whatever else. It used to be a gap like that, and now it's a gap like that. And that's what's happened with the game. It's just become so much more competitive. So you might have a guy come through, look shit hot for 6 months, and then someone else comes through and he's shit hot for 6 months. And it's like, there's just always 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys coming through every year. It's not just one guy coming through. But Rose Zhang on the ladies is going to be pretty special by the looks of it.
Can you say her name again?
Rose Zhang.
Okay.
She left Stanford in May time. and went and won her first LPGA event. Finished top 10 in her first 2 majors, I believe. She could be generational. So she could be generational. It's always hard to say, with the women's game as well, because a lot of, when you see girls come through at a young age, Lydia Ko was a prime example. She won when she was 16, 17, but then she hasn't then kicked on from that. I guess, you had to do the development rates of men against women. So yeah, it's always hard to say, but I would say Rose Zhang would be the one to look out for over the next few years for sure, certainly on the LPGA side.
Okay. So when you start looking at the marketing of golf, right? What would you say is the biggest misnomer out there? Like, we watch it as consumers, and we watch the commercials, and we watch all the hype that goes into golf. What would you say is the biggest misnomer, for the consumer watching golf?
That every new driver adds 5 yards. Because that's how they promote it. Like, realistically, it doesn't. I've got a driver that's 3 years old, and I can compare that to every model that's come out this year, and none of them are any better. They're no longer. The accuracy is not any better. Sometimes you might pick up. If I picked up 5 yards for me, that would be massive. That's a big jump.
Mm-hmm.
But the average consumer, if you get fit properly, if you've been fit properly, you're not then going to go pick something off the shelf and then gain 5, 10, 15 yards like they all try and claim. It doesn't happen. So I'm not saying the equipment's got to the point where it's sort of, the curve's flattened a bit, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be 15, 20 years ago that, the new driver would probably gain you 10 yards, 5, 10 yards. But now it's, over the last 4 or 5 years, I wouldn't say there's been any massive gains in that, and they're still marketing it as the longest, straightest driver ever and all this. Like, well, the last one was as well that you brought out a year ago.
Yeah. So, that's interesting. So when you look at the golf, your golf bag, right? There, as you mentioned, hey, you know what? This is not going to add 5 yards. You got this gadget here, this gadget here. It's the question that I want to ask you is, when it comes to putting together your golf bag, how do you break through the noise? Like, can you just break it down for us right now? Like, hey, I'm starting to pick up golf. My kid's starting to pick up golf, whatever the case may be. This is what you need in your golf bag. Like, you don't need anything else. You just need this. How would you break that down for us? I know it's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's a little bit. So I think for anyone that's starting out, just pick up a golf club and hit it. Just get used to hitting the ball. Figure out if you want to enjoy the game, if you're going to enjoy the game. And then the best thing to do is just pick up a set of irons that are going to help you. You don't want to go, I've got a set of blades that are that thick. If you pick them up, you think, what the hell are these? What's going to happen with these? You wouldn't be able to hit them. If you go and pick up an iron that's got that much at the bottom, all of a sudden you're going to get the launch. The thing I see with a lot of amateurs is they're too proud to play a iron or wood or wedge that's going to help them more. There's too much male pride, basically, in a lot of amateurs. They think, oh yeah, I can hit this, I can hit this. You might be able to hit it once out of 10. That's no good. If you're going to enjoy it, hit it 8 times out of 10, and it's going to improve your enjoyment. You're going to improve because of it, and that's going to improve your enjoyment. There's a lot of guys now going to 7 woods, 9 woods, 5 hybrids. It used to be that everyone would have a 2-iron in a bag, 2-iron, 3-iron, 4-iron, 5-iron. But now you've got 5 woods replacing 2 irons, 7 woods replacing 3 irons, 9 woods replacing 4 irons. So it's basically how are you going to get the most enjoyment out of the game? You're going to want to make it as easy as you can. It's a fucking hard game. Don't make it any harder than it needs to be. So, and again, I would say that if you've got 14 clubs in there,
yeah,
one brand is not necessarily going to be right for each sector of your game. So I've got a different driver to my 3-wood. 3-wood's different to my 2-iron. My 2-iron are different to my main irons. My wedges are the same brand as my 3-wood, and then I've got a completely different putter. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different brands in my golf bag.
So what does the beginner say to all that? Like, dang, man, that's a lot of money. Like, man, that's what I mean,
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Or do you work your way up to that? You have to work your way up to that over time.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you're just taking it up, just go and buy a second-hand set of irons from your local retailer. You got PJ Tour Superstores and Edwin Watts over your way, and they'll have second-hand set of irons you could probably pick up for $200-300. It's still an investment, but then you figure out if you're going to enjoy the game and get into it, and if it's something you want to do, and then you can then look at upgrading them, basically. Mm-hmm. There's irons you can keep in the bag for an amateur for 6, 7, 8, 9 years if you wanted to. Wedges will wear out. Metal, 3-wood, 5-wood, 7-wood, they're good for a while. Your driver you probably want to change every 3 or 4 years just in case. But if you make the investment into it, it's not necessarily that you're going to have to make that same investment every year. It's going to be over a period of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years.
That's a good point.
Unless you're a golf addict and you want something different every time something else comes out, and then you're just spending a lot of money. So I know a few guys like that as well. So.
No, that's good. That's good. So I got another question for you. So if somebody's looking for, a pro, right, to get lessons from, right, because there's a million of them out here, especially, I mean, out here in Phoenix, because we live in a golf mecca out here. Yeah. What would you say are the top 2 or 3 things to keep in mind when you are looking to hire somebody for, golf lessons and just getting better? What are the things that this person must do, and what are some red flags if he or she says this or does this, like run the other way? Well, how would you advise us today?
Yeah, I mean, I think every coach is different. Every coach is going to have. There's obviously set ways. There's 100,000 different ways to swing in a golf club, but the fundamentals are the same, and how they go about teaching those fundamentals will be a bit different. So every coach, in their own way, will be different. For me, I want someone I can relate to and get along with. If I'm standing there for a couple hours hitting balls, I want to have a bit of a chit chat and have a laugh and, get on, just have someone to talk to occasionally as well. I'm very much a feel player, so I'm not necessarily thinking of positions in my golf swing throughout the golf swing. I'm not thinking of, right, I need to get it here, laid off and whatever else. I just want to get the feel of what that is. I don't necessarily need to know the technical aspect behind it. So the coach I'm with now, a friend of mine, Jordan, we've been working together for 4 years. 4 years now? Yeah. And he's learned teaching me that I don't want to know the technical stuff. Just tell me how to get there. And then he'll give me 3 or 4 different ways of doing that. So it's like, well, feel that bowed or feel that elbow there or whatever it might be. So that for me is important. For someone else who might be really technical, they're going to want to know every single detail. So it might be a case if you're picking it up that you go and see someone to get a starter lesson just to see how you get on with them and see if you can relate to what they're saying. And if you can't, then maybe go and look at someone else. There's enough PGA pros, certainly in Phoenix, Arizona, that you could just call up. Every golf course has a PGA pro. So I think for me, it's just finding someone relatable that you get on with and that understands what you want to get from the game as well and has your best interest in getting you there as well. Yeah. Because there's some guys that will just stand there and be like, yeah, just do that and do this, do that. Well, they're not really invested in it, are they? They're just there to make their $100 an hour and send you on your way, and they haven't actually done anything. Mm-hmm. So you want someone that's going to be invested in you, invested in what you want to do, someone you can have a chat with, and someone that's relatable to, really. So that's certainly for me anyway.
That's good. No, that's good. So once again, we're here with Sam Whitehead, professional golfer, giving us a call from the UK today. And before we give you the mic again for closing words, this has been really great. I want to do something called reverse psychology. So give me your best 2 to 3 questions that maybe you had while you were playing, regarding mental performance, mental skills, or that maybe even a larger swath of athletes would have, that are competing in this ridiculously hard game of golf. Like, what are some questions that you guys would have? If you were to be able to speak directly to a sports psychologist or a mental performance specialist.
So I think one of the big ones in golf is how do I stay in the moment? How do I stay present? Because you've got such long. You're out there for 5. Well, in tournament golf, you're out there for 5 hours.
Yeah,
and you're gonna hit 30 to 40 long shots and 30 putts. So you're hitting 70 shots in the course of 5 hours. That's a lot of time you're not doing anything, and the mind can go here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
So how do I stay in the moment? How do I stay present?
Mm-hmm.
What else would you be? How do I tackle fear?
Okay. I'll start asking. I'll start answering those. It looks like you're thinking about a third one, but as you're thinking about that third one, I'll start answering them. So the first one, how do you stay in the moment? What I found, what a lot of athletes do, unfortunately, is they think about all kinds of things at one time. And I think the average human being has anywhere between 12 to 60,000 or more thoughts per day, right? And what happens with athletes, baseball players, golfers, football players, basketball players, whatever the case may be, is that we have this problem with remembering. We remember what we did the last hole. We remember what we did the last quarter. We remember the last shot that we took and it was terrible. And we start thinking about, oh, what could happen next? What could happen? So how do you stay in the moment? One of the things that you can do as a mental skill is what we call finding a focal point. So a focal point is somewhere on the golf course, right, or wherever it is that you are, that you can look at, because that thing is not going to move. It could be a tree, for instance. Let's call it a tree. You find that tree and you attach. I call it find, attach, attack. So you find a tree. You find a stationary object. It's better if it's stationary, because if it moves, then it's just like it's adding an even more confusion. But you find that focal point and you attach a command word, a deep breath. It can be a Bible verse. It could be, an affirmation. And then you go back and then you attack. So you find something, you find a permanent object, you attach a command word, a deep breath, an affirmation, whatever you want. And then you go back and you do that thing that God has blessed you with the ability to do. And the reason why focal points are so powerful is because now I'm not thinking about 60,000 things. I'm thinking about
one focus.
Exactly. I'm thinking about one thing now, just one. And that is the one of the biggest things, man, that athletes face, is that they are trying to battle all these thoughts of things that are going to happen, that could happen, that did happen, and they're not focusing on the most important thing, which is do it right now. So focal points are one way to stay in the moment. Other people use technique called like grounding, right? So when you're grounded, you can literally, what do I taste right now? What do I smell? What do I see? There's a catcher, professional catcher that I work with, and he will literally he'll grab the dirt, he'll grab grass, right? And look to the left, look to the right, and literally like feel the feelings. And one thing that you can do in grounding is you can actually find the furthest point that you can see. So if I see a hill or if I see a tree, the furthest thing that I can see, I look at that thing, and then I look at, the area that I'm closest to now, right? And I ask myself simply, what do I see right now? What do I hear? What do I feel? What do I smell? What do I taste? Do I have sunflower seeds in my mouth? Do I smell the smell of fresh cut grass? Do I hear the sound of the PA announcer? And you literally come into that moment, fully grounded. Um, those are things that you can do. And I'll give you one more. One more is you can use an affirmation. And a lot of people, they get this twisted, right? When you hear the word affirmation, we think about, we think about some monk on the top of a, of a hill. You know what I mean? And what is an affirmation? An affirmation is a short, quick, powerful, truthful statement that you make about yourself to yourself. That's all it is. And the reason why affirmations are powerful and they help you stay in the moment is because when you start even looking at the brain, in your brain, we have what we call the limbic system. And the limbic system is responsible for human behavior responses. And the limbic system is closely intertwined with our auditory system, what we hear. And when you are saying affirmations, especially out loud, you are in essence activating that limbic system, and your body it almost always follows what you're thinking and what you're saying. So if you're saying, I am prepared, I am focused, I am ready for this, I will execute, my time is now. When you're saying those things to yourself as affirmations, your body's just going to fall in line. And the inverse of that is also true as well. If you're saying, man, I suck, man, this is what happened last time, man, what are we doing here? Like your body is going to mimic what you were thinking and what you were saying. So those are three ways that you can truly stay in the moment and give your body quality inputs in real time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
Does that make sense? Was that?
Yeah, no, certainly. Like the focus and the grounding is something I've sort of worked on before, and even just trying to distract myself and just looking around and kind of appreciating where I am and just trying to feel grateful for what I'm doing, and that kind of takes me back out of what I'm doing and just sort of refocuses me a bit as well.
Yeah. So the other question that you asked was about fear. Like, how do you handle fear? Great question. There's one of the things that I tell athletes is that there's a difference between fear, stress, and anxiety. There's a difference. And many times we use these terms interchangeably and they're not the same, right? Stress is how much tension something is under, whether that's psychological stress, whether that's physical stress. Okay. That's what stress is. And all stress is not bad. Eustress, EUSTRESS, that is actually the stress that allows us to grow. And every living organism, everybody who's involved in the performance world, like yourself, we need that because that's how we get better. Whether it's in the weight room, whether it's rounds of golf, whether it's running, sprinting, whatever the case is, we need that to get better. Fear is different. Fear typically has fear is a feeling of unease, immediate danger. It's an unease about some type of immediate danger. And so fear almost always has an object. Almost always. If somebody pulls out a gun and starts wielding it around, there is cause for fear because that gun could hurt me or worse. It can hurt the people I'm around or worse. There's an immediate danger because there's a physical object. If you're walking and all of a sudden a snake just jumps out at you, there's cause for fear because there's immediate danger and there's a physical object, a physical thing that can hurt me or worse. With anxiety is a feeling of unease about some type of imminent event imminent or uncertain event. And with anxiety, there's no physical object. It's all in here. So a lot of people say, man, I'm scared. But it's just like, okay, what are you scared of? Oh, I'm scared that I'm not going to make the cut. I'm scared that I'm going to get released. I'm scared that, that this plane is going to go down. Dude, you're not scared. You're anxious. You have anxiety. And anxiety is about something that has not even happened yet.
Yeah, it's basically creating a scenario in your head that's
exactly
played out.
That's exactly what you're doing. So and the reason why I delineate the three is because you can't solve the equation if you don't know what the inputs are. So what are the inputs? Is it fear? Is it stress? Or is it anxiety? In this case, with a lot of golfers, baseball players, football players, fill in the blank, it's not really fear. It's anxiety. So and I'm not going to go over all of it here today, but I give a 5-letter acronym that helps you in real time deal with either stress, anxiety, even fear. So the first one is breathe. So it's brass. When you look at brass knuckles, right? Brass knuckles, they're illegal in several places around the country, around the world. And brass knuckles help to accentuate the punching power by the person who's punching. And as you know, it can disrupt and destroy ligaments, tendon, tissue. But the acronym I gave is BRASS, BRASS. The first thing that you need to do is you need to breathe. Breathing is one of the best ways to alleviate stress, fear, and anxiety. Just breathe, because breathing gets oxygen to your frontal lobe, to your brain in general, where you are making the higher order decisions. And if you cannot breathe in a critical situation, your ability to problem solve, to perform, and to dominate diminishes. So you'll see that some of the most high performing athletes are the most calm in pressure packed situations. And how do they do that? They're in control of their breathing. The second letters are reframe. You need to reframe how you speak. Remember, we just talked about the auditory system, right? So instead of saying, I can't do this, this always happened, this never happens, instead of using that type of vocabulary, you reframe and you say, I can do X when I do Y. That's the formula. I can do X when I do Y, not if I do Y. I can do X when I do Y. I can sink this putt when I get full extension. I'm just being arbitrary. You're the expert here.
Yeah.
I can sink this free throw when I follow through. And when you start talking like that, you give your brain the impetus for being a problem solver and then being the supercomputer that it is. So that's R. A is acknowledge. A lot of people do not want to acknowledge their stress, fears, and anxieties. They just want to be tough and they just want to sweep it under the rug. And this is ironic, but I'm going to say it, one of the easiest ways to alleviate stress, fear, and anxiety is to actually acknowledge it. When you acknowledge it, and this is research, when you acknowledge it, the sting of stress, fear, and anxiety actually goes down.
Yeah, so this is something I've gone through as well. Like, I've noticed myself wandering on the golf course. Your brain's going somewhere else, and you're like, what are you doing? Where are you going? And as soon as you sort of acknowledge it and grab it, it's like, okay, you feel better straight away.
Exactly. It's like, it's like any reality TV show that you've ever watched, right? Biggest Loser, whatever reality TV show, they always have that contestant that says, oh, when I was 10 years old, there was a bully at my school, and then they bring in the bully, right? And that person confronts the bully, or they say, oh, I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid of heights. And what do? They take them on an airplane ride, and they kick them off the airplane. You're like, ah! And they're free falling, and when they get down there, they're like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing that ever happened, right? It wasn't as bad as I thought. So acknowledging is huge for alleviating stress, fear, and anxiety. And then the S is survey. You have to survey where you are, right? If you're on the golf course, look around, look to the left, look to the right, look up, look down, understand the terrain, understand the gradient. Because what happens a lot of times when you're experiencing psychological stress or anxiety, our peripheral, our vision goes like this. In your brain, you have several cortical maps. You have a map for how to do everything. You have a map for how to putt. You have a map for how to throw. You have a map for how to jump. All around our brain, we have maps for all kinds of movement. And anytime those movements are compromised due to high levels of stress, those maps become blurry, and we start doing this. And all of a sudden, we just, we are basically limiting access to higher order thinking, limiting access to quality because of stress, fear, and anxiety. So what you'll notice is that great athletes, when they come into a performance course, pool, court, or field of competition, they will walk around, they will understand the course that they're playing on, they will take mental pictures of where everything is, and the next day it's just like they've done it 1,000 times. And so survey is huge because it lowers stress, fear, and anxiety. So breathe, reframe, acknowledge, survey, and when you do all four of those things, the last S is the game starts to slow down. Now, for some people, they move faster, and some people it slows down. But what happens when you are in a flow state, as the late Dr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi would have said, when you are in a state of flow and things are just happening seamlessly, and you are playing in this with a great level of efficiency, chronological time is altered, and it becomes easier for you. And so anybody who's dealing with fear, stress, and anxiety, that is the acronym that I give them. BRASS, put the knuckles on. Breathe, reframe, acknowledge, survey. And when you do those things, the game slows down. Do you remember? Do you have any other questions?
I'll give you another one. So how do you stay, or how to motivate yourself on days you're not feeling it? The days you get up and you're just like, oh, I don't want to go and do that. How do you get yourself to go and do what you got to do?
I love it, man. I love this question. Motivation is an ephemeral thing. It's fleeting. Sometimes I can't even motivate my kids to clean their room, right? And so the question is, how do you motivate yourself, right? In the beginning of every year, right, there are so many people who they go backwards on their New Year's resolutions. There's, I think, it's like 90% of gym memberships go unused. 80 plus or minus percent of New Year's resolutions go unfinished. Why? Because of what you just asked me right now, motivation. I just mentioned his name, Dr. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talked about something in relation to this. So he found through research that the people who were the highest level performers, who were the most highly motivated, are what he calls people with an autotelic personality. Autotelic, AUTOTELIC, autotelic. Auto means self, right? And then telos means goal. So something that's automatic is something that runs itself. And the word telos, telos there is goal. So the goal is itself. So people who are the most efficient, the most highly motivated are those in which the reward is the work itself. So how do you stay motivated? You start doing the work. That's how you stay motivated. You just simply get up and you start doing the work. And the work itself is my reward. I read because I love reading itself. I shoot free throws because of the love of basketball itself. I go to the golf course because of the love of golf itself. And what starts to happen, especially in the elite, what starts to happen is that when you get up and you go in and you just start, it's almost like you start going out. It's automatic. And that love, that desire, you talked about it earlier in this podcast, that enjoyment, it starts to replicate. So how do you keep? I'm going to send you something. I'll send you a video that I did too here, Sam. I might attach the link to this content, as well. And it goes exactly to what we're talking about right now. But the work itself is your reward. And many times we think of we think about it backwards, right? It's just like, oh, we want this, but we don't want to do this. That's leading on its way to the end goal. But what happens is the journey, they've actually studied drug addicts, right? Like you and I, dopamine is released at the expectancy of reward. So when we shoot, what's a great score for you, Sam? On the golf course.
A good score would be like 66, 66, 67, but 66, great score would be 61, 62.
Okay. So, and you can fill in whatever blank it is. If you are on your way to shooting that for your golf score, if you're a pitcher and you're on your way to a shutout, if you are a basketball player and you're on your way to a 40-point game, a triple double, whatever the case may be, and you're on your way, one of the things that they studied with drug addicts was, and they would pay these drug addicts and they would follow them, and it wasn't the actual drug. When they started looking at brain activity, it wasn't the actual drug use itself that created that release and that euphoria. It wasn't the actual drug use itself. It was the journey to get the drugs. Right? And so for us, what does that have to do with us? For us, we want the reward, but man, when we just get up and have discipline, right? Like Mike Tyson said, discipline is doing the thing that you hate, doing it like you love it, right? And then you get the reward, it's like a double whammy. So somebody who's on your level as a professional elite athlete, it's something that you just have to continue to force yourself to do, and you do it in the journey, and you have to realize it's the journey. It's not the end goal, it's the journey, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Hey, man, the first 3 questions are free. If you need anything else, we'll talk about, a little arrangement there.
You're paying for me to come here first and then maybe pay you back. We'll see what's going on, mate.
Just kidding. Hey, man, this has been great, man. Sam Whitehead, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, as we get ready to close, what are some parting words, man? You got a room full of 10,000 high-level performers, right? What are some things that are on your head and heart, man, in terms of, how you would encourage them today, man? What would you say?
Like you said, just enjoy the journey. It's not the destination; it's just the journey. What you're trying to do, it's getting that 1% better every day, or 0.1% better every day. It's enjoying it. It's having fun. It's going through the highs and the lows and trying to get through it. And that is what high performance is to me. It's getting through the bad days and then seeing the good days again. It's the peaks and troughs. It's never a flat line. It's never constant. There's always ups and downs, and just got to keep working and keep enjoying the journey and keep grinding and see where it ends up.
That's great, man. It's been great to see you, over the years, man, just do your thing. And you've definitely had some highs and lows, and you're still at it, man. And so thank you so much for joining us. And for my guest, Sam Whitehead, this is Josiah Igano of the All Things Performance Podcast. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.